Right then, guys, and welcome to I'll take this, but this is the beginning of my race review. We'll have a look at every team, see how they did in every single race on a scale of God race. These are the teams who had just a flawless race, nothing went wrong, and they just smashed out the park. Very good, couple of minor issues, but generally a race weekend, which if you were given, you would happily take. Run of the mill. These are just the teams that had a run of the mill. If you don't know what that means, it basically means just a fine race. They didn't really do anything special, but they weren't completely dog shit. So run of the mill. These are the teams who didn't exactly do completely shit, but they didn't do anything good. They just kind of existed, but they weren't quite embarrassing, which is the next tier. Get in the bin. These are the teams. These are the teams who are going to completely forget about this race in about 2 seconds after it ended. These are the teams who had a complete horror show of a race. So let's begin. Drake. Now, where do we begin with Drake? Well, Goldschmidt. I mean, if we were to talk about Goldschmidt alone, I mean, it's a big fat bear. Goldschmidt did fuck all, didn't he? I honestly don't think he showed up once on camera the entire race, other than when we were scrolling for the field. Rodal was actually okay. I mean, she kind of just stayed near the lower points, although she had a good fight with Thompson, I think Nikolaev at one point. And I think also there was another driver who dropped back. I think it was Perez. So she had a very run-of-the-mill race. Goldschmidt was just forgettable. And, I mean, given Rodal in the end only got 1 point, I think this is a meh weekend race for Drake. I think this was just a race which they didn't really do anything special. I mean, they weren't completely terrible. I mean, it wasn't one of the mill because it wasn't like they had, like, positives. Like, what's the positive about getting 1 point? But, yeah, for their situation in a midfield fight, 1 point, not really going to cut it. Envy, I mean, I don't even need to explain why I'm putting Envy in God tier, God race. You had Munat crushing it. Mendes coming from sixth to win the race. Munat, of course, who's tied up an extension, just finished second. They got a 1-2. Nothing went wrong for them. It's just domination. Esther get in the bin. I'm sorry. What did Esther do this race? Could someone tell me one thing that went well for Esther this race? Let's see. You had Darman bottoming it at turn 1. You had Winfield cutting turn 1 and getting a penalty. And I still don't think they got a point. I mean, technically, Winfield got fastest lap. You can use that excuse. Go fuck yourself. That's not how any of this works. Like, no. I mean, they literally got no points. I mean, you had Winfield and Darwan clowning it about like they were fucking Mazepin or fucking, I don't know, stuck on your moto. Google them. Just get in the bin. I mean, it was a terrible race for Leicester. The less said about this one for them, the better. Let's move on to Ironside. Now, Ironside weren't their normal shit show this weekend. And this is interesting, because I know Savo is fighting for the point, and I think she ended up losing out to Rodal on, like, the final lap. So, that wasn't terrible. Crow didn't really do anything, to be honest. Crow was just there, just kind of existing. I think she qualified well and then dropped back in the race in the early stages and never really got going again. I actually don't know where she ended up finishing in the end. I'll just have a double check, because she was that forgettable. Crow ended up finishing 17th, so wasn't even that bad, to be fair. It wasn't that good. To be fair, right, if we're discussing, like, on an Ironside scale, okay, this is how I'm thinking it. If we're grading up based on, compared to the rest of the races, I think this is very good for Ironside. Finishing 15th and 17th, nearly getting a point. Pretty good. I mean, for any other team, it's a get in the bin. But for Ironside, because I'm going to grade these based on, compared to how the team's done over the season, you know what? It was a very good race for Ironside. 15th and 17th, one of the better races of the season. Moving on to Cosworks, and again, I'm going to say well about. Now, this is controversial. And okay, hear me out. So, okay, actually, see, me putting Ironside in very good is now. Yeah, I'm going to put Ironside down in one of the mill, but I'm going to put them just below Cosworth. Okay, so Asachenkov jumped up in the pits from, like, 16th to, like, I think in the top 10. I think he ended up 11th in the end. So, kind of fortunate in that regard. I can't really lie. But, yeah. But, wasn't complete dog shit. I mean, Bexky once again just got outclassed by Asachenkov. How she was like praised by me on when she was fighting Kim Woodjia. No, maybe Asachenkov has like the first car and they're just putting all their resources in him. I don't know, but that's that. Asachenkov jumped at the pits. Betsy didn't really do a lot. It gets put into run of the mill because they actually got points, and that's why they're also above Ironside. Not a race that's like gonna blow you apart, but for Cosworks, it was serviceable. Ignore that. Peregrine, do I put it in God race? Now, this is a hard one. Because Peregrine were very fortunate this race. You had Ezio blowing up, you had Nomura blowing up, you had you had Cordova putting it in the wall, you had Nomura blowing up, you had Hackinson putting it in the wall. So they were kind of fortunate in that regard. But they still ended up 5th and 6th, which is why I'm going to put them in very good. They had a very good race. In the end, you didn't really do a lot, but they kept their nose clean. They showed good pace. Jumped up in the pits, obviously. I think Avenue and Dia both jumped up pretty well in the pits. Ended up 5th and 6th, helped by good luck, which is the only reason they're not in God tier. Had like none of them. Had like Nomura and Ezia blown up. Yeah, definitely in here for like their season. But because they were kind of fortunate, I'll put them in very good. Platinum. Oh, Jesus Christ. So I have to talk about this fucking clown circus for team. Seriously? I mean, no. I mean, I'm pretty certain Licksteiner and Winfield came together at one point. Nikolaev, nothing. Just get in the bin. Just moving on. Pretoria. Very good. Above Paraguay because they were less helped by the DNFs. Obviously getting their first podium of the season with Balajim, which would be good for his confidence, and also for being in 4th. Very good for their team confidence. Of course, gives them a massive point gain in the standings, taking them into that fight with Esther. Only 3 points behind them for 4th, obviously going into the sprint race where they should have a decent chance. A very good race of Pretoria. However, the only real thing that lets it down is that they didn't quite have the pace to challenge Envy, obviously, and then the pit stops happened. But they had a good race. Not quite God tier because they weren't, up there and kind of were held a little bit by the DNF, not as much Paraguay, but a good race. I mean, even when you compare it to their shitness this season, it's a get in the bin for Project R. I'm sorry, they just had an absolute horror show of a race. Look, obviously they were not helped by the fact they started 27th and 28th, but even with the amount of DNFs and the amount of bagging, Jaro could only get 21st, and Kortig was 1 minute 14 down on the race leader Mendes. Jaro is 21st. The only drivers he beat home were Lickstone and Darmine, who both got involved in incidents, and Goldschmidt, who was about as forgettable as bread and butter. It's just a mess. Santos. Where do I rank Santos? Now, before Hackinson put it in the wall, very good. Because in the end, Boucher also jumped up. Because Hackinson put it in the wall, gotta be honest, it's kind of run of the mill. Like, fine. I mean, 10th and 11th compared to their standards is bad, but they were a little bit unlucky, of course, with Hackinson and Mendes' incident. Obviously, that wasn't actually given a penalty to either, which is probably fair. Boucher jumped up in the pits, so that's not really doing much. She had a very meh race. Hackinson had a good race, but then kind of got screwed by luck, and then having to pit, but still managed to finish in the top 10, which is pretty good. So that's why they won a row, yeah. Shenzhen, get in the bin. I'm sorry, what was this race? You had such a good opportunity. I'm sorry, you had such a good opportunity to finally do good. You had Nomura starting 4th, you had Cordova starting 5th, 2 drivers who were very good, looked even on pace. You go into the weekend, Nomura blows up, Cordova's in the wall. I mean, he got fastest lap. It doesn't mean jack shit when you only get 1 point for it this weekend. I mean, he put it in the wall, ended up, 20th, behind the likes of Betsky and Nikolaev and crap that 20 average weekends. Nomura blew up, so there wasn't even that to save you. It was just meh. I mean, I wouldn't say it was, okay, it's get in the bin. For what it could have been and how the race transpired, get in the bin. Just fuck off. Moving on, we have my team, Shrewsbury. Now, yeah, this was meh. This was very, very meh. Thompson might not have even got points if half the field in the top half didn't blow up. Linglis obviously blew up. Damning for him. I mean, Thompson was helped by the DNFs to somehow secure P9, but not really a weekend we're going to look back on fondness. I'd say it's better than Drake's, because at least we had pace, unlike Drake, but yeah. Stoffel, just when you think this team can't get any more clown circusry, Ezio blows up from a fight for the race lead. Then Perez has a complete shit show of a race, went from like 8th to 12th at one point, and then jumped back up to 8th in the pit stops after Thompson bought it, obviously. Just very meh. Like, at least Perez got points, so it wasn't a complete get in the bin, but very, very poor. And we move on to Bergian. Now, were they helped by DNFs? Yes. But did they also have a very good race with Singh finishing 7th from like 18th and Kennedy squeaking into the points? Yes. So therefore, controversially, they go in my very good category. Look, you can say what you want about DNFs, but if we're saying but when you compare it to what they've done for most of the season, it's pretty good. And if we're going to argue that because of DNFs, they shouldn't be very good, in which case, Peregrine should be fucking down here. Like, come on. Like, they had a good weekend. Singh really was probably drive for the day, to be honest. Going from 18th to 7th, although Mendes would probably dispute that one. But, yeah, Kennedy squeaked his way into the points to get to Bergen their first double points, I think, for a while. So, good result for them. You know, it gives them 10 points. Obviously, they now jump Stoffel by 6 points going into the sprint race. And it was a very, very good race. So that's how I rank it. Envy at the top, Vittoria and Peregrine into Bergen in the very good tier. Santos, of course, works nicer in the run-of-the-mill weekend. Shrewsbury, Stoffel, Drake in the Mertin. And then Shenzhen, Project R, Esther, and Platinum all go in, get in the bin, because they just had terrible weekends. If you feel free to disagree, you have two options. Either tell me I'm wrong in the comments, or call me a cunt on Discord. Given that most people here probably hate me, actually, you were doing both anyway, but you can choose either which one. Goodbye.